Deputy President. Well, I mean, I think we should all be a little bit shocked, but for the first time ever, we actually saw someone in the Labor Party telling the truth. This was truly a Labor budget. More spending, more taxing and more deceit to the Australian people. And in the midst of this Labor-exacerbated cost of living crisis, the solution that the Treasurer had was to keep spending, keep taxing and just put out a couple of sugar hits to make everyone be happy. We saw $315 billion of new spending at a time that we actually need restraint. And after 2 years in office, 3 budgets, this government is no closer to dealing with its own homegrown inflation crisis, meaning that cost of living pressures for all Australians will continue and interest rates will be higher for longer. In fact, today, the average family with a mortgage is more than $35,000 worse off under this government. And isn't it great that at a time when the budget's actually forecasting unemployment to rise, that the Albanese government thinks it's a great idea to employ an extra 36,000 additional bureaucrats in Canberra. Anyone think they're getting 36,000 times better the service? Pretty sure you're not, and certainly not $35,000 worse off, feeling that you've got that value for money. But I wanted to really have a look at, a couple of months ago I was made the Shadow Assistant Minister for Mental Health, so I had a bit of a look. I wanted to see what was happening in mental health, because this country is actually in the midst of a mental health crisis. And whilst it warranted a brief mention last night, this government has, of course, failed to prioritise it as the issue that it is. And I think, Senator Brockman, I'm glad that you're here, because I actually just got an email from a clinical psychologist in the wheat belt of Western Australia. And to quote him, this has only just come through whilst I've been in the chamber. The budget. As usual, mental health is dumbed down, degraded and dehumanised, with policy demoralising to those doing the work. Well, I don't think I could have summed it up better, and I will try to cover off some more of it, but I think coming out of the West Australian wheat belt, we know the priority this government puts on the mental health and wellbeing. We know what they think of farmers, and we certainly know what they think of farmers in WA, because they can't wait to kill every industry off over there. And I don't think those new Akubras will be so welcome at Beef Week next week, but here we are. So we do know, though, that mental health was exacerbated through the pandemic, and that there was a lot of anxiety that was induced and uncertainty. And we know that the more that this cost of living crisis goes on, that anxiety is heightened. Important expenditure is becoming further and further out of reach by most families. We also know, like in many things, that early intervention is key in helping scores of young Australians who are exhibiting the first signs of mental illness, and we need to make sure that they're supported so that the issues don't get worse. Now, there was in principle, the digital mental health service with no details, as per usual, about how it will function and what it will do. But what there wasn't any money in the budget for, and what those opposites don't understand, that there's some mental illness and significant mental illness that can't be fixed via an app. It actually requires significant interventions, both clinical and medical interventions, to ensure that people are well supported into the community. But what did this government do when they came in? Quick as a flash. They cut the Better Access initiative from 20 sessions to 10. They removed vital services from those who need it most, and not a hint last night that they've done anything to bring them back or make them easier to access. Now, I understand this isn't sexy stuff. There's no photo ops in Akubras for mental health. But this is something that affects every Australian. It permeates every part of our community. Every family is impacted in some way by mental health, and not all, but a lot of families are impacted by significant mental illness. And we know, New South Wales, Sydney, has just had 2 attacks, both of which can in a lot of ways be attributed to significant mental illness. They've had lasting damage done to communities and families because those people have failed to be supported. But yet again, this government is not interested. If it's not about renewable energy, it's not about their budget. This is something that we are seeing time and time again. We didn't see a mention of suicide, something that is a scourge on this country, because that is not the priority of this government.